When we came in the late 80s, there was a major controversy in the community because Cape Town had sighted the moon, I think it was for Ramadan, and Johannesburg hadn't sighted it. And Johannesburg, Jamiat Ulema Transvaal at that time said that 500 kilometers is the cutoff point. So then the decision was, no, we're not accepting Cape Town. It created quite a bit of rumpus.
Sometimes you are referred to as the renegades.
I don't look at upon it as...
Are you aware of? I'm sure you're aware of this.
I wouldn't call it as renegades. I was just saying that because we were more closer to the ground, we could see some things that perhaps people who were away from there could not see it. They could not see the tearing apart. I mean, you had a situation, Bosman and Nuclear were accepting Cape Town, and here Newtown wasn't. And I don't think that was a very pleasant experience.
In Conversation With is proudly sponsored by Africa Cash and Carry, Crown Mines, and shot on location at Kurtuba Convention Center.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome to In Conversation with Channel Islam International. I'm really honored to have with us today His Eminence Fadilat al-Sheikh Moulana Ebrahim Bham, Hafidhullah. Moulana Bham, Jazakallah khair for joining us.
Jazakallah. Wa alaikum salam to you and assalamu alaikum to all the viewers.
Jazakallah khairan. Congratulations, Moulana Bham. 100 years of Jamiat Ulema, 101 years. Not many organizations and not many Islamic organizations. I don't think there are constitutional Muslim countries even that are, or many of them that are 100 years old.
Yes, during our centenary year, one of the messages that we were advocating is to thank Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Quranic ayat says, وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ relate and mention the favors of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon you. Obviously, it's a fine line between relating the favors of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what some people would term as boasting. So we hope we got the right balance in our centenary year by saying that our 100 years is not for us, only talking about the accomplishment, but firstly, thanking Allah Ta'ala and to put on record our deep gratitude to all those ulama who served the Jamiat al-Ulama during its 100 years of existence.
MashaAllah. Moulana Bham, you are the president of Jamiat al-Ulama.
No, Secretary General.
The Secretary General.
Yes.
I commented to you, Moulana Bham, that since I'm in Johannesburg from the year 2024 years, when I think of, and I think most South Africans, we think of Jamiat al-Ulama, and I'm not flattering you, we only think of Moulana Ebrahim Bham.
Well, I suppose, sometimes there's a person who is the person who is in the front. You always get the people who are in the background who do a lot of work. And maybe they don't come to the forefront, but they are equally important.
Of course.
And I think there is a team. And we've got a wonderful teamwork. And inshallah, during the course of today's talk, I will speak about some of the accomplishments and visions that the Jamiat al-Ulama have.
Definitely. Moulana Bham, you are sitting at the top of the pyramid of Islamic leadership in this country. There aren't many people who sit with the experience, who sit in the position in terms of the organization that you run. Where did this journey start?
Well, firstly, I don't agree with the assessment that I'm in the pyramid.
You're
but
at the
yes,
top of the pyramid. I know you're modest, Jazakallah khair. But Jamiat al-Ulama, it's 100 years old. It has influence. It has structures. It has people. You are a very popular community leader. You have insights and experience that not many people have.
Well, whatever it is, there is only the fazl and grace of the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The way sometimes people say that it is, many a times people only look at your apparent, and that is also because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has concealed your shortcomings. But be as it may, where we are in a particular position, we make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us in that particular position. And whenever we are called upon to make any decision on behalf of the community or on behalf of our council, the Jamiat al-Ulama, and that's what I normally tell people today, that the Jamiat al-Ulama is an organization, and yes, sometimes we do make calls and decisions on behalf of the council, which alhamdulillah people look upon as authoritative. So where does it start from? Well, I grew up in a very small town in Limpopo, that time used to be known as Wombats, now known as Bela Bela. And alhamdulillah, I had a very interesting youth, I must say. It was a very interesting time. I left for studies to Karachi, Pakistan at the age of 12.
Moulana, there's an urban legend that says that they used to send the naughty boys away to the Darul Ulooms and for studies and that. Can you confirm verify, partially correct. I'm not saying whether you were a naughty boy or not. I'm just asking the question.
Well, I was a model student in school to such an extent that the principal at that time, there used to be a very popular principal amongst the Muslim principals, Rashid Chunara, wrote a letter to the department that I'm recommending that he must be double promotion. He should have a double promotion. He should say that he is so good in his studies that instead of him going from grade 1 to grade 2 or grade 2 to grade 3, he should be promoted.
So you're on the top of the pyramid since then, Maulana?
No, not really. But I left that at the age...
Was it common for people to go at the age of 12?
No, not really. And of course, going overseas, at that time at such a young age. But there were certain factors that influenced that. One was my maternal uncle, what we in Gujarati call Mamaji, So my maternal uncle used to be attached to the Jamiat Ulema Islamia Binuri town in Karachi. He used to be the vice principal. He was very close to the founder of the seminary in the Darul Uloom, known as Binuri town in Karachi. So he had a very great influence in my life, and he told me that I would like to take you to study. And what I found was that, and I suppose correctly at that time, my father's side of the family felt I was too young, and for several reasons they felt that I shouldn't go while I'm so young. And I still recall that when my mother told me that because of the difference of opinion within the family whether you should go or not, perhaps it's better you don't go. And I cried. I said I want to go. At the age of 12. And I when I think about it in hindsight, I think it's one of the best decisions I made. Because Karachi that time, firstly, I was fortunate that my uncle was in the madrasa, in the Darul Uloom. He was in an administrative position. Not that I really benefited in that particular sense, but being as a fatherly figure there. And then I had a maternal aunt who was in Karachi. That means my mother's sister was in Karachi. So that was an added advantage. But just from the experience of going to Karachi at such a young age, the madrasa environment, the ustads that I had, the students that I interacted with. There was a time in our madrasa that we had almost 75 South African students.
Wow.
So all in all, that experience, if I have to, rewind, I would do the same thing all over again. Because it was just a remarkable experience going to Karachi. I spent 10 years in Karachi. Obviously, you came back to South Africa 2 or 3 times. Normally there used to be like a routine after every 2-3 years, you come back home and then you go back again. So yes, I did my hifz there, and then I did my whole, what we call Alim Fazil. So you did 6 years or 7 years of kitabs.
Was there any subject or any subject or discipline within Islamic studies that you were fond of, that you gravitated towards, and that's something that you still like?
How you say, jack of all trades, master of none. I never really specialized in anything. Now when you think about it, and many times when I looked at my life, I went 12, I completed at the age of 22.
Mashallah.
And I suppose because you were 10 years abroad, you were just sort of now keen to get back home and do something. When I look at it in retrospect, I think that, you were only 22 years. You could have done something. And sometimes one of the regrets I feel, and I felt that I should have done, was at least go to the Arab countries and, do well in Arabic. Go to an Arab country, learn to become more fluent in Arabic. So in Karachi, because the medium of instruction was Urdu, you understood the Arabic, but you were never fluent in Arabic because it was not the language of choice or not the language of communication. That is one regret that I still have, that if only at that particular age, at 22, I could have gone somewhere. I was still young. But I suppose after 10 years, you felt that now there's a need to come back, and the parents also had expectations. So maybe I didn't take advantage of the fact that I completed my studies at a relatively young age, and I could have done more.
What year did you come back?
In 1983.
1983. A very interesting time in the Muslim world, 1983. There was the Iranian Revolution.
Yes.
there was the revolution in Afghanistan, then there was the Soviet invasion in Afghanistan. 1984 in South Africa, there were riots. What was life like then in terms of politics?
Well, very interesting that you're talking about that. In 1977, Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. And obviously that within the religious sector in particular, there was an uprising against it. And slowly, there was a resistant movement that emerged. And much of it emerged not only from Afghanistan, but even from Pakistan. So while we were studying, we used to know about people who used to sort of leave their studies and said, we're going to make jihad. We're leaving. And yes, they left, and when they went to part of the resistance. Well, I didn't, although there was someone coming to say that people are going out there. Well, you were concentrated on your studies and you did your studies.
And of course, you were still young. I mean, 1977, you were 17.
Yeah, 17, 16,
something
17.
around there,
Yeah.
so.
But you did see the building of a resistance that came mostly from Afghanistan, but even from the religious sector in Pakistan.
When you came back to South Africa, what was, so when you were there, any of the ulema who are well known in South Africa today who were with you, any of the other ulema around the world who we might know who were your colleagues?
Well, there were many of our South Africans who have become well-known names. Mahashabi Saluji, who started off the Darul Uloom Zakaria, was about 3-4 years ahead of me. Qari Muhammad Rafiq Aturani, Qari Iqbal Aturani, all of them were with Moulana's. I was 1 year ahead of maybe Moulana Zahir Ragi. So yes, many of the South Africans who were there, I interacted with them. So, and of course, because not only that, there were many students who were from the United Kingdom, West Indies, France. There used to be a Moulana Ayub Francisi. We used to call him Ayub Francisi. And recently he came to South Africa, and we had a small get-together of our alma mater. And it was very interesting to see what he was doing in France. We had people from New Zealand, from the Caribbean, United States. So all in all, it was a wonderful experience interacting with different people from different countries.
Of course, that gave you you were in an Islamic country, Ziaul Haq was in power at that time. That then gave you a very interesting backdrop against which you can answer my next question. What was Islam like in South Africa in 1984, 83?
Yeah, I must just say a few things, because when Ziaul came in, of course, we know that Bhutto was executed. And there was just after the 1977 elections, there was an uprising against the elections, and they said it was rigged. And I must make a small anecdote here that the principal of our madrasa said that no one is allowed to take part in political rallies. If there is a need, I will lead the rally. But up till then, no one must do it. So one day while they going out, after Asr, I was walking, and really I was an innocent bystander. And all of a sudden the police came, and there was a small protest, and I was picked up. And I was put in the police van. Now, I was sort of, completely, shattered and worried that just that morning, the principal of the madrasa had said, none of the students are supposed to take part in political rallies. And here I'm sitting in a police truck, as part of a political rally, although I was an innocent bystander. And I was a little worried, and to the best of my ability, I mustered the courage of speaking in English. And I told the person, how dare you catch me? I am a foreign student here in South Africa. And the person who was in charge of the police, he said, Janado, he looks like he's come from somewhere abroad. So I got freed from there. And so there was quite a bit of, between the students that Moulana was taken into custody and he was released or something like that, yeah.
So you've got struggle credentials from Pakistan, Moulana?
I can cite that as part of struggle credentials, yeah.
That's international struggle credentials.
Yeah. And of course, when we came in 1983, that time was the very first year I came, there was the tricameral parliament. And of course, we know the activists against the tricameral parliament. You know what was very interesting? When I started off, I was young, and of course, many of the activists came in. I was the Imam of Newtown Masjid. I was just appointed that time. I was young. And I was put under the spotlight that you need to speak out on the political affairs of the country. And that
were you conscious? Were you aware?
No, that's the point I'm coming to, because the general feeling of the ulama was to be apolitical, not to take part in political.
Is that true? And Thank you for bringing that up. And I think that's something we can elaborate on too. What was the thinking of ulama in them days?
The ulama in those days was that we must not take part in politics. Right, by and large. There used to be
Do you
pockets.
understand the justification for it?
Well,
Not saying it was right or wrong. Do you understand the justification for it?
Well,
Today,
now that
today.
when you start looking at it in retro, you must bear in mind that the tricameral parliament happened when I was 22 years of age, 22, 23, just started off in Newtown. And yes, the general trend amongst the ulama circles that we're not getting involved in politics. I personally feel that we could have said certain things about apartheid without getting into the nitty-gritties of apartheid. And without getting, I won't say getting into the nitty-gritties of apartheid, but getting into the nitty-gritties of the political dimensions of it. The moral aspects, I felt we should have spoken more about it, the morality of it. And I think even that we stayed away from discussing, which was clearly against Islamic principles.
What was the thinking? I mean, there had to be some type of thinking or philosophy or justification behind that. I mean, it couldn't have just been for the sake of it.
Well,
I'm not trying to justify it, but that time
there was, of course.
I mean, Jamiat al-Ulama made it 100 years, right? This is part of that history, and
Yes.
and this is these types of decisions has created that continuity.
Well, that particular time was that we are a religious organization, we're not getting involved in politics. And I'm aware of the argument that you cannot divorce any sector of life away from religion. Because religion, as we say, Islam plays a role and gives us guidance in every aspect of life. It should have given us, and not should, it gives us guidance with regard to it. As I said, I personally feel that we should have, if not get involved in the political struggle about the ANC and the Nats, etc., at least give guidance on the moral aspect of it. Perhaps we should have done more with regard to it. But as I say, at that particular time, the leadership did take the view that we're not getting involved and we are apolitical because we are a religious organization.
Was that I know we're generalizing, but was that a common position between ulama around South Africa?
Mostly in the Transvaal and Natal. The MJC, of course, although they are also accused of the same thing, that they didn't take or they were not vocal enough against apartheid. But of course, there were greater opposition to apartheid in the Cape than what there was in KwaZulu-Natal and Transvaal.
And so your generation, Moulana Ebrahim Bham, you become the Imam of Newtown Mosque, and what happens then?
Well, you must remember, Newtown Masjid at that time was the center of activities. Everyone was vying to get control over the Newtown Masjid because at that time
What's the history of the mosque?
Well, the history is an amazing history. Recently, if anyone has got the chance, must come to Newtown Masjid. The Turkish Cultural Organization, TIKA, have done a calligraphy in the Newtown Masjid, right, which is absolutely stunning. Right, and the reason they have done it is because Newtown Masjid is known as Hamidiyya Masjid.
Yes.
Now, Hamidiyya was called because it was named after Sultan Abdul Hamid. And Sultan Abdul Hamid in the late 1800s was a very popular Muslim ruler. He just revived the aspect of the Ottoman Empire, a very well-known conversation between him and the Zionists that I'm not going to even give you a drop of the sand of Palestine. So there was a certain degree of reverence and respect for him across the Muslim world. And because of that, the name was kept Hamidiyya Masjid under the name of Sultan Abdul Hamid. There's a letter on record, which is also in the Turkish embassy, hanged in the foyer of the Turkish embassy, which the Hamidiyya Masjid Committee had written to the Ottoman Empire.
So this is
1860, 1870.
Is that the age of the masjid?
Well, yes, at least 130, 140 years, yes. So they had written to the Ottoman Empire, thanking them for sending Ramzi Bey. And Ramzi Bey, as you would remember and recall, he was the Ottoman ambassador to South Africa in the late 1800s. And of course, there's a whole story about him. And because of the British being in charge, he was jailed and died in incarceration. So that was, of course, but because of that, there is a historical link between the Turkish Ottoman Empire and the Newtown Masjid. And because of that, they have made the calligraphy just as an appreciation of that link.
That's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
That's a bonus I got in this interview. I didn't see it coming. So Moulana, you said that entities wanted to get control of
Yeah,
the mosque.
because it was such I think at that time it was the most, the biggest Muslim congregation for Jummah. Definitely in the Transvaal region, if not the entire country. To get 2,500, 3,000 people was a norm, you know. So people used to vie for the Newtown Masjid platform.
At such a young age, we must have felt overwhelmed.
You know, if it wasn't for the support of many people, I would have been overwhelmed. And it was also a big learning curve for me, you know, especially with regard to chartering or going through some of the political challenges. So yes, why don't you speak against the tricameral? If you can't speak,
Did you?
No. At that time, I must remember, I was within 6 months this happened.
Okay.
So I was still naive. If I was at that stage, what I'm now, I definitely would have.
Of course.
Right, because since then I've spoken on nearly every aspect, right? I've spoken on elections, I've spoken on South African situations, I've spoken on Muslims to be involved in politics, I've spoken about Palestine, I've spoken about
We'll
various...
get to these interesting ones. I'm trying to understand, you come back and you're a young alim, and I say this because there are many young ulama who are assuming leadership roles and are on their way, inshallah, to be becoming leaders.
Yes.
And so I'm just trying to understand, how do you go there?
Yeah, so initially, yes, we were still finding our feet, and at that particular time, the general trend was that you don't speak don't speak on politics. So that, by and large, the ulama did adhere to it. There were one or two individual voices. I remember Marhum Moulana Qasim Ali speaking against apartheid in Benoni. Moulana Said Bannu, who's still alive, who gave a talk about it in Lens. But these were isolated voices. And by and large, of course, the ulama by and large stayed away from discussing politics in the masjid. That, of course, came the Court of Islam. Professor Farid Isaac came and he spoke about, the politics, etc.
Were people like Professor Farid Isaac and others of his generation, were they considered pariahs by the established ulama
Yes,
organ?
they were. There was a clear distinction.
Really? How has that, I know we're jumping from, but I mean, so that of course set what I would call these, what were they called? Revolutionary Muslims? Resistance, the resistance within the Muslim community?
From my own personal self, as it did, over the years, I've been able to, despite the fact that I might disagree with a lot of people on different ideologies or different views, right? And of course, I've differed a lot with Professor Farid or with anyone else. One of the things is that I've always felt that no matter what the difference of opinion, you must have that type of relationship that you can pick up the phone with anyone with whom you have a difference of opinion to discuss matters.
Do you have that relation with most ulama in South Africa?
Unfortunately, not now. And that is one of the...
Oh, really?
That's one of the tragedies that I will come on to speak on about during the course of the talk. That I've always kept the door open. I don't know how others would feel about it. I am prepared to discuss the matter. Of course, there have been different allegations, difference of opinion, sometimes very, expressed very forcefully.
Well, some very hurtful words
Yeah, so,
against me personally.
I've always told any alim, whatever I've got the courage of my conviction that whatever stance I have taken from a religious perspective, or whatever stance the Jamiat has taken from a religious perspective, I'm prepared to back that stance with evidence. As far as my own personal weakness is concerned, then I will ask Allah Ta'ala to forgive me. But as far as the stances we have taken, individually and with regard to the stances Jamiat has taken, we are prepared to stand by that stance and prepared to even discuss it and even, if necessary, sit and debate the matter if necessary, if debating helps.
Inshallah, we'll get to some of these issues. I want to go to somewhere totally different. You are a young man, 22 years old. You have to decide to start a family somewhere down the line.
Yes.
In our world that we live, we see the ulama, we see the mashayikh, and we see tullab al-ilm and maulanas, but we hardly hear, or we never see the families that back them and the families who are sitting now alone while Moulana Ebrahim Bham is here and while he's there, and etc. But in 1983-84, as someone who just comes back from Pakistan, wants to start a family, what does that look like?
Well, obviously, when you come back, you're 23, 24, whatever it is.
You got such a big smile, Moulana.
Well,
now we're talking about that.
From the family's perspective, there was like, a lot of pressure. You need to get married. You're sitting alone here in Johannesburg. You can't continue staying alone. So you went on an extended samosa run, And eventually,
you must have been popular.
Well, I suppose so. I would like to think so. I would like to think I was an eligible bachelor at that time. So yes, in fact, exactly that's how my present marriage came into being. But my late father-in-law sent messages. They said, listen, man, would you consider getting married to me? And alhamdulillah, Allah Ta'ala made it such. And of course, we do believe our relationships, especially our marital relationships, are made in heaven, so to speak.
Of course.
And of course, there is an indication about it in the Quran. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا. Allah has created for you your spouses. So yes, we do believe that our marriages are divinely ordained. So whatever has happened, alhamdulillah, I must thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tremendously amongst the favors of Allah ta'ala. And we will never be able to enumerate the favors of Allah ta'ala sufficiently. One has been my relationship across the board with my family. It has just been from every aspect, whether it be with my siblings who look upon me as a pillar of support, and I look upon them as pillars of support. And one of the things that I always, sometimes can smile about whenever there is a post that comes out or a pamphlet that comes out against me, my sisters will feel more hurt about it than what I am. And they will phone and say, what are you going to do about it? I said, just take it easy. What is that man's opinion? What are you getting excited? But they'll take it very, very seriously. Alhamdulillah, I've got 3 wonderful children. And every one of them have been settled. They are all well established.
Your grandfather?
Yes, grandfather of 4 beautiful grandchildren. And when I always tell people, whenever anyone gets grandchildren, I always send them this small saying that grandchildren fill a space in your heart which you never knew was empty.
Subhanallah.
Only when you get grandchildren will you come to realize the validity of that particular statement. It's absolutely amazing. It's another lease of life. It's another dimension of life that you just look forward to. And even with my own children, alhamdulillah, one is an alim, 2 of them are teachers. One of them, the daughter is an HOD in the Johannesburg Muslim School.
MashaAllah.
The son is also a teacher. The daughter-in-law is also a teacher. So both my daughter-in-law are teachers. So I come from, all my families are all of them are involved in teaching. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. I'm just looking at where Jamiat offices is, where Johannesburg Muslim School is, where Newtown Mosque is. You're not moving a lot. You're in like a 1.5 kilometer radius.
Well, the moving has come from the traveling, not so much from the. And I've been fortunate in that regard also, alhamdulillah. There's been some wonderful opportunities I've had and I don't know whether it be because of the ability to speak on various topics, I've been fortunate that I haven't bounded myself to anything. I recently spoke in West Street Masjid and I spoke on Islam and mental health. And when I walked out, 2 people came and said, Moulana, we would like to thank you for bringing up something that normally is never spoken about. And I just have this within me that if there is a need to speak on something, in fact, it makes it easier for me because then at least it gives me something to prepare, something to make some studies on. So, alhamdulillah, because of that, I've been able to speak in various countries. I was this year, in fact, in 2022, I went to the United Kingdom on the 25th anniversary and the 25th year of the commemoration of the Friends of Al-Aqsa. And one of the reasons why I was called was in 1997, I was a guest speaker at their launch in the Queen's University in Leicester. And in the very same Leicester, I spoke at the 25th year of commemoration. And it was absolutely amazing. I shared the platform with Jeremy Corbyn, and of course we know Jeremy Corbyn is an influential politician in the United Kingdom. So Allah has been kind to me in that particular sense that I've been able to share platforms with people in diverse, backgrounds. And perhaps one of the reasons is that I've always had a keen interest whenever I do reading and whenever I do research is to not narrow down my reading, is always to be broad as possible.
That takes me up to leadership. How did you get? So I'm picking up interesting parts of your life: family, international travel, exposure, responsibility. I mean, you were given responsibility of imamat at the age of 22. You should. I'm sure you work very well under pressure. Otherwise, you wouldn't have lasted. And how does the journey start into Jamiat Ulema and into leadership position? Very
interesting. So in 1983, I joined December 1983, and I took out a post in December 2013, which I just, which is on my social media, which I said on the December 13th, 2023 was 40 years I was in New Town Masjid. And I just thanked everyone. That I said that more than me serving the New Town Masjid in the area, I have been privileged to be part and parcel of this, the masjid and the community. And just remind me that during the course of, during our talk, I just want to give you a perspective when we talk about the different demographics. So in 1983-84, I started off with in Fortsburg being the center of Muslim professionals. So Dr. Jasad used to be there, and Khalil Hassam used to be there, all people who were well known in the community. So that used to be a place for what I call MUPPIs, the Muslim urban professionals. And then now you have a completely different set of people who are in the New Town Masjid, mostly the Indo Park, people who have come from the Indo Park, who are migrants and who have migrated here. But starting off in answer to your question, so in 1983 when I started, in the extension of the New Town Masjid, the normal executive meetings of the Jamiat used to take place. At that time, because New Town Masjid was central, so Jamiatul Ulema Transvaal, that time it was known as Jamiatul Transvaal.
The Transvaal sign was on the Jamiat offices until a few years back.
Yes. We only changed it in 2000. Yeah, and obviously we came under pressure even from media. Why are you not changing it? And one of the things that we used to say was that for a great amount of time, even civil society took time to change. So you still had the Transvaal cricket team for a long period of time, even after 1994. You had the Transvaal Bar Council. They still call themselves the Transvaal.
I found it interesting that Transvaal was in the Arabic script.
I used to take part in those meetings. And from there was a call made that my uncle, the same uncle who took me to study, who was also instrumental in me coming to New Town Masjid. And I must tell you, one day he phoned me while I was in Wombats. I came back, stayed in Wombats for a few months. I was still weighing my options, what I must do. And one day he phoned me and he said, I've made arrangement for you to speak in New Town this Friday. Now that time, New Town Masjid was a hotbed of activities. And anyone who spoke there, they always used to be critics, from the left and the right. And people say, no, he doesn't speak about politics. He speaks about this and this is topics. And I told my uncle, I'm not even settled. How can you just put me like that? I'm just saying.
He must have seen a quality in you.
I wonder. I know. Maybe it's
what quality do you think he saw?
I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe he felt I had the talent. So I told him that I'm still not settled. So I still remember he made a comment. He said, how many children and wives do you have that you need to get settled? So I told you, okay, I will speak. Give me another 2-3 weeks. And then he arranged with me to do a Jummah there and to speak. And then, alhamdulillah, I was appointed there in December 2013. December is a very odd time to start off a responsibility at the end of the year.
It's the low season to work you in.
So yes, so then during the course of those meetings, when I used to take part in those meetings, then the people who were in authority, Mufti Bashir Sanjalwi, Moulana Ebrahim Bham, Hafiz Abdul Rahman Mia said that why don't you join the Jamiat? Now that time all the work of the Jamiat used to be done voluntarily. There was no one who used to be paid. So there was no paid people working of the Jamiat. So because of it being, voluntarily, most of the time, the work never used to get done. Really, people just everyone was doing things on a volunteer basis. So there was
what was the work of the Jamiat? Yeah.
Well, that time they used to do the major thing of the Jamiat was the curriculum. So we used to run the madrasas, the Maktab curriculums. So we used to go for imtihan. I went in imtihan in several years in 1983-84 to the different madaris to take the imtihan and check the standard of education. And then they used to do the halal. So that time it was relatively easy. Halal was not as complicated as what it is now. Sena today have thousands of certified outlets. Right? That time you only had to control one abattoir because everything was centralized. All the meat had to come from the city abattoir. It was not allowed for you to import meat or to bring meat into Johannesburg from any other region. So every particular carcass that came into the markets was from the city deep abattoir. So once if you control the city deep abattoir, you control every particular aspect of meat that came into Johannesburg. And that was also halal. And that was run jointly by the Witwatersrand Muslim Butchers Association.
Who were the people involved in them days?
That there was...
I think, one thing that we don't do enough, we don't mention the names of people who were part of Islam and developing Islam in them days.
It's interesting because when we went in our centenary, we took him along, Haji Mahmoud Muhammad.
Okay.
He is still with Sena.
Subhanallah.
And he says that I was Sena for 50 years, And he used to be the first halal supervisor. And Moulana Ahmad Durwesh, who is the principal of the Maktab and the Madrasa next to Newtown, the overall supervision was done by Mufti Bashir Sanjalwi. So yes, that we used to do. And then there used to be interaction. There used to be interaction. That particular time, towards the end of the Nats rule, the South African Law Commission looked in the possibility of recognizing the Muslim personal law. And that time there was a big survey that was done. Questions were asked. And the Jamiat Ulema then sat with MJC and the Jamiat Ulema KwaZulu-Natal to answer those questions. Obviously, that came with a bit of controversy in the sense that the other Muslim organizations said, see, you are cooperating with the government. And the response used to be, we are cooperating on a political dimension, we are cooperating on a religious aspect. They are asking us with regard to, Muslim marriages, what is the fundamentals, how is the Muslim marriages done, etc. And we're giving a religious answer. But of course, that came with a fair bit of controversy.
Moulana Bham, Jazakallah Khairan. We will be back in a few seconds, continuing with Moulana Ebrahim Bham, Secretary General of Jamiat Ulema, South Africa.
In Conversation With is proudly sponsored by Africa Cash and Carry, Crown Mines.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back in Conversation with Moulana Ebrahim Bham, Hafidhakallah. Moulana Sahab, in the break, we mentioned something about nostalgia. You're talking about Newtown and Fordsburg. I don't know if you have nostalgia, but there are many South Africans across all sectors of society who have nostalgia for the 70s, for the 80s. And that nostalgia sometimes comes across from observers with a political interpretation and so forth. Do you agree that this level of nostalgia that exists?
There's no doubt whatsoever that, especially amongst the middle-aged people, those who are 50 and beyond, they still have a great degree of nostalgia about the past. Now, I don't know whether it is because of a certain degree of order, even if that order and discipline...
Like public order and discipline.
Yeah, public order and discipline, and the safety and security that there was apparently there. Now, we're not looking at the other side. And I think many times I tell people that when they say that things worked in the old South Africa, I said, well, it worked in certain areas. Did you see it working in the townships? Where, for example, there used to be one big electrical pole for lights for the entire, couple of streets. And there used to be no electricity in individual houses. But there is a certain degree of nostalgia. And Allah knows best with regard to on what basis they do it. Because, there were certain other things that we didn't have. Now when you look at, for example, the Muslim community, the amount of Muslim professionals there are, the Muslims that have moved on into different professions, whether it be accounting, whether it be doctors, you didn't have that previously, right? So by and large, that time Muslims were mostly business people, or they were workers. There were very few who became professionals. Now you look at the degree of professionalism, you look at the standard of living. So I'm reading a book, Foster Street, which is a novel about the times, or at least not a novel, but speaking about the times, account of that times. And you had situations that were there that the brutality of the apartheid regime. You had a particular type of system where people used to use communal bathrooms. When you wanted to use the bathroom at night, you couldn't do it in the day because at night you had to go outside. A house housed 5 families, 4 families. So maybe people look upon that in that particular way. There was a lot of what they call muhabbat, love. People used to stay together. You could walk into anyone's house from the back entrance without any appointment, etc. But then on the other hand, you look at the privacy that you have in today's time, the houses people have. Nearly everyone has his own ensuite bathroom, even if you're a young person. So, yeah, it's always going to be a situation. I think the people who do have that nostalgia, more than anything else, would be perhaps because of the security, or at least a perception that things worked comparatively to what has happened in South Africa post-94.
Interesting. Moulana Sahab, what does Jamiat Ulema do today? What is it control? How big is it? How small is it? What is its mandate? Who does it represent?
I think it's a very interesting question. When we came into the Jamiat, as I told you, I was the first person to be employed.
Wow.
One of the first people. And I recall this particular matter there was an executive meeting. And that time the Jamiat never had any funds. We never used to do any collection. Everything was done on a volunteer basis. And they said, okay, if we are going to employ him, who's going to get the funds? Now, there was a 20-minute discussion where we're going to get the funds to employ the first person to be employed by the Jamiat.
What's the first salary in Jamiat Ulema in 1984?
250 Rand.
MashaAllah.
And a 20-minute discussion ensued where you're going to get the 250 Rand. Until Marhum Hafiz Abdul Rahman, who was a pioneer, and he made many Hafiz, became Hafiz at his hand. He was one of the great ulama. I think maybe hundreds of Hafiz, became Hafiz in his hand. So he said, I take the responsibility. And he used to every month, give me the 250 Rand. And then the Jamiat started moving, and then the young ulama who came in from the late 80s, and they felt that the head office was Mias Farm. There was no direct link between the ulama and the Jamiat and the common people. So they felt that the need that we need to have offices.
Were the ulama based mostly or all in Mias Farm at that time? Was Mias Farm the center of
the center of all the decisions? So the Hilal announcements, everything used to come from Mias Farm. The syllabus used to be run from. In fact, the Waterfall Islamic Institute and Jamiat were almost synonymous. Then afterwards came that the ulama, younger ulama, Moulana Haider Dorat, myself, we said that listen, we need to have a wider reach. And there's a time when we opened the offices in Lenasia.
Sometimes you are referred to as the renegades, the guys who split, who had a revolution or had a coup. And I did not intend to have this discussion, but you opened the door.
No, I don't look at it as...
Are you aware of? I'm sure you're aware of this.
The point was that I'll give you an example. I'll just give you a proper example with regard to this particular matter. Right? When we came in the late 80s, there was a major controversy in the community because Cape Town had sighted the moon, I think it was for Ramadan, and Johannesburg hadn't sighted it. And Johannesburg, Jamiat Ulema Transvaal at that time said, on a particular ruling based on the view of a great scholar, no doubt, Moulana Anwar Shah Kashmiri Rahmatullah Ali, that 500 kilometers is the cut-off point. Beyond 500 kilometers, you should not accept the ruling. Now, there are different opinions on that. Even Imam Abu Hanifa Rahmatullah Ali's opinion is much more vast than that. But I'm not going to go into that particular technical. So then the decision was, no, we're not accepting Cape Town. It created quite a bit of rumpus.
Who were when you say Jamiat Ulema in that time, so who were the ulama?
At that time, there was Mufti Bashir Sanjalwi, Moulana Ebrahim Bham. They made the ruling.
And that was still Jamiat Ulema, or was that Mias Farm?
No, Jamiat Ulema Transvaal.
The Jamiat Ulema Transvaal, okay.
As I said, there was there was a very fine line to draw. It was almost like synonymous. Jamiat Ulema KwaZulu-Natal, on the other hand, they used the other view of Imam Abu Hanifa Rahmatullah Ali to accept the sighting of Cape Town. And, there was so much of chaos. So we as the young ulama, we called up a meeting and said, no, this cannot continue. We're living in one country. How can it be in one country we have 2 Eids and 2 Ramadans? And to a certain extent,
so
we forced the issue.
you had your own youth league in the
we forced the issue. And we forced the issue and we said, no, we have to make a change. So the elderly people felt that, all right, if we are going to make a change, we need to be convinced about the method of sighting that is in Cape Town. So for the first 3 years, when we decided to accept Cape Town, two alims used to go on the 29th to go and see how the sighting is done and how the process of the evidence was given. And when they were satisfied with it, then we accepted it. But that came about because of the younger ulama. And I wouldn't call it as renegades. I was just saying that because we were more closer to the ground, we could see some things that perhaps people who were away from there could not see it. They could not see the tearing apart. I mean, you had a situation, Bosman and Nuclear were accepting Cape Town, and here Newtown wasn't. And I don't think that was a very pleasant experience. And that's the reason why, I suppose, maybe because we were more on the ground, we got involved. And the Lens office open, and then the Forsberg office open. And now Jamiat has got 7 offices in various parts of the country, mostly in the former Transvaal region.
What does Jamiat Ulema do?
Well, firstly, I would just say, I'll just give you an example that now one of the things that we run the madrasa, the maktab. So we've got a complete syllabus running from grade R right up to matric.
Okay.
Right. We have 160 madrasas that we supervise in South Africa, besides the Muslim schools. Most of the Muslim schools in South Africa use the Jamiat syllabus. Now, when you're talking about a syllabus, this is not a government. This is an organization which prepares a curriculum from grade R till grade 12. And I think sometimes people don't realize the worth and what Jamiat brings to the table for the Muslim community. You have a syllabus running from grade R right up till grade 12. And that is not done by a government. It's not something that a government is sponsoring a curriculum. This is a curriculum that has been prepared by ulama from, an ulama organization. No funding from the government. That particular curriculum has now been used in all major English-speaking countries. In the United States, United Kingdom, Barbados, Australia.
Is that part of what you do when you travel overseas?
There's a separate department. I don't deal with a department.
But
as a Secretary General, you get involved in it.
Is it part of what you're trying to promote, the Jamiat Ulema's curriculum and some of its programs?
We do. So we're going. There's an invitation to go after Ramadan to go and, explain the curriculum in Australia, which that particular relevant department will go and do. So 160, and now it has been translated in the Spanish language, translated in the Thai language. Part of it has been translated into Urdu. Now that is very interesting because we used to get our knowledge from Indo-Pak, right? And here, because we have a successful maktab system, a madrasa system, which is not in Pakistan. The tragedy in Pakistan is you get very high Darul Ulooms, but the Islamic education on the ground is weak, right? Oh. So they've seen that system that we have, where by and large Muslim students come to madrasa after doing their school, and they come nearly everywhere. Every small town you have, there's a small madrasa. Children come and learn that. So they want to replicate that. So you have that, and then we have now the Darul Ifta. So the Darul Ifta is, we have a mufti, well, alhamdulillah, is very visionary. Mufti Zakaria Pandor. He's looking at creating and helping muftis becoming specialists in various fields. So you have those who are in finance, who have, Islamic finance, and who have become experts in that. Someone has now become an expert in medical ethics, right, and psychology. All of those who are doing social counseling in the Jamiat Ulema, marital counseling, have done courses on psychology and social counseling. We have someone who's done a course and went to India to do qaza. That means judgments. How do you do judgments in the space that we have as Muslim minorities? So we have 8 muftis in the Darul Ifta, which look at different aspects of Muslim life.
On that point, and not to interject, but before it runs away with us, is the Jamiat Ulema a fatwa issuing entity?
Yes.
Is that part of your functions?
There was a count of something over 1,500 fatwas that was issued in the last year or something like that.
Do you think that's a lot?
Well, that is...
What's the mechanism of fatwa?
That is now besides the telephonic consults that happen, which happens almost 50, 60 a day. That happens.
And how do fatwa? Do you have individual ulama to deal with fatwa?
Yes.
Or do you have committees who sit and deal with bigger issues?
So one of the biggest, the challenge in terms of time, and of course always and people do ask questions, and especially in the age that we are living in, the instant age, people want almost instant answers. And one of the reasons why Jamiat might sometimes take more longer is there's a process of checking. So someone can write the fatwa, but it has to be checked by 2 or 3 seniors who are experts in their field.
Okay.
So whoever writes it, it has to go through a purification of, it being verified and checked by the peers, by other muftis.
Because, I mean, one thing we pick up in South Africa at the moment is there's fatwa coming from everywhere.
Yes.
Different ulama and different bodies who sometimes have...
Which causes sometimes unnecessary, if you maybe wanted to say it, sometimes causes confusion because there are different types of fatwas.
I think saying, that is one thing. I think also sometimes some of the fatwa come with a context that is sometimes very venomous.
Yes. That hasn't been. I mean, when you read the fatwa of great scholars, today the fatwa of great scholars are published.
Does Jamiat publish its fatwas?
No, so far it hasn't been published in a book form. The fatwa of Mahmudiya, the Mufti Mahmud Sahib Rahmatullah Alayhi, at last count it was 28 volumes. So yes, it has been published. And you don't find the venom in those fatwas, which are basically giving you the Islamic ruling. This particular aspect of, calling people names and labeling people and giving all types of things have not been part of fatwas from our great scholars.
There's some interesting issues with name calling. I interjected him on. I know what. So you do. There's a fatwa committee. You look after the madaris.
Yes.
The maktabs.
Then we also have we got a Darul Uloom. The Darul Uloom, which we don't have a boarding facility. Okay. So it's like a university type of situation in the sense that people come in the morning and they go in the afternoon.
That's at the head office?
At the head office. Alhamdulillah, we have 80, 90 students. Many of them have graduated. We do allow them to do different studies while they are becoming alims. Okay. According to the aptitude and capacity of the students, they can do university courses. Okay. And we are already seeing the benefit of it. Many of our ulama who have graduated from our Jamia, from the Jamiat, are nowadays gracing the Islamic banks. 2 or 3 of the supervisors in the Al Barakah Bank are graduates from the Jamiat Institute of Higher Learning. So yes, we have that. We also have the Muslim Mediation and Arbitration Council, where we do mediation and arbitration so that people can be safe from going to courts and incurring great amount of expenses. In what
is arbitration? Not in commercial or
all types
private?
Everything. And then we also have the marital, the social department, the welfare department. The welfare department has done tremendously amount of great work. It is not an emergency relief like, for example, Waqful Waqifin, the gift of the givers, or Al-Imdad. But it will take a project, especially with regard to overseas, and say that after the dust is settled, can we do something that is long-term and sustainable? So we have taken sustainable projects and we have completed it. So we have built a whole village in Banda Aceh after the tsunami. We've built 2-3 villages in Pakistan after the floods. We have built villages in Syria, Sri Lanka after the floods. We are looking after orphanages in Syria with the Syrian the Syrian refugees. We are providing water in Yemen. So we'll take something. We used to look after the cancer oncology ward in Shifa Hospital in Gaza. So alhamdulillah, it is a very, very well-run international operation. And besides that, what we do, that's a small part of our operation. The major part is...
Masajid, what is your...
No, the masajid, we leave it to the local communities to run.
So
there's only one that we do is the Soweto Masjid in Orlando East, which has been run by the Jamiat.
Okay. So what is Jamiat al-Ulama's relationship to masajid? Do you have, are the ulama at this masajid maybe affiliated to Jamiat as ulama? Are they... I won't say the subscriptions, it doesn't exist, but I'm trying to understand what's the relationship.
The relationship would be few-fold. One would be that many of the ulama would be affiliated. That's one of the
The
other would be that many of the masajid, especially in the country towns, the madrasa which is attached to it would be doing the syllabus of the Jamiat. So in that way, there's an affiliation and there's a relationship. And many a times in many of the constitutions which we help and we provide to people, there would be a clause if there is any particular type of arbitration or mediation, any dispute, the Jamiatul Ulama would get involved in resolving that dispute.
The Jamiat Ulema hasn't said that Masajid can be, or as a Jamiat Ulema opened up an affiliation process where you can be an affiliate of Jamiat Ulema or something.
We've never really gone into that. Although our constitution allows for anyone to become a member of the Jamiat. He doesn't have to be an alim.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's open. But we've never really gone on to that type of membership drive. But it is open to anyone to become a member.
Okay.
So maybe you can consider that.
No, we're not ulama. Monasak, you mentioned something, and I think this is a very big issue in South Africa, or rather not preempted. When it comes to family issues, you have a division that looks after marital social issues.
Yes.
What does that look like?
It's great amount of concern. I spoke last week on sabr, and I said that normally in the Indo-Pak culture, and even in the South African culture, sabr is a very restricted type of meaning. So we look at, someone does you something wrong, you must make sabr, you must adopt patience. Someone has wronged you, you must adopt patience. But sabr in the Arabic language is a very dynamic quality. It means much more than that restrictive understanding of sabr. It would mean endurance, it would mean self-control, it would mean perseverance, it would mean courage, it would mean resoluteness, it would mean a great amount of things. And one of the things that I made mention of last week in my talk was that one of the aspects of sabr is to have tolerance. وَجَعَلْنَا بَعْضَكُمْ لِبَعْضٍ فِتْنَةً. We have made human relationships into a trial, into an examination. أَتَصْبِرُونَ. Won't you adopt patience? Every human relations come with its fair share of challenges. We are not perfect, neither are we perfectly matched. Each and every one has got imperfection. How do you deal with people's imperfection and keep a relationship going? So Allah Ta'ala says, Atasbirun, won't you adopt patience? Now we are living in an age where everything is instant. So you have instant coffee, instant, you have all of these type of things, disposable things, So when we were small, I don't know if you could remember that, every child that grew up, every child that was born, the parents or the in-laws sent a whole, a big package of Glodina black label napkins.
Okay.
That used to be a standard thing for any parent, that you have to have the Glodina black label. Now you have disposable nappies, you have disposable razors. So everything is almost instant and almost everything is disposable. So I wonder if that has an impact upon our mindset. So there's instant gratification. If instant gratification is not achieved, disposable. The same thing has happened in our relations.
Is it that bad?
Yes, it is. It is maybe perhaps even more. Really,
if we look at a caseload, how many cases of marital disputes do you get a month?
Many a times I tell you that personally, people come to you because perhaps you are well known, right? And most of the time, I've just told them, see, I just don't have the capacity.
And the Jamiat officers?
Jamiat also they do, and they try the utmost. But they've not been able to really do justice and give time to every particular case that come to them to the extent that they should be, because of the just mere sheer numbers. Right? And of course, there is a criticism that you don't deal with it. Well, we've got 3 people dealing with dozens of cases that come. So we've got 3 people who are dealing with it all along. They are dedicated only dealing with marital problems.
What are the type of trends you're picking up today compared to 10 years ago, 15 years ago? The types of problems, the types of issues, the willingness to resolve? What?
Well, as I put to me, one of the things is I think that we don't have tolerance, which Allah Ta'ala in the Holy Quran has put it as one of the greatest aspects of human relationship is to have.
So are you saying that a lot of the issues, I once used the word trivial, do you think a lot of the issues are...
Let me put it this way.
Okay.
In past years, people would live through those challenges, not in today's time. Now, on the other hand, there's another extreme. And the other extreme was that previously, women would live with abuse because of the stigma of being separated. Right? and it's well known. I've seen it in my own family, that woman used to be abused, and the elders of the family used to say, don't deal with it, otherwise it's going to break and end up in a divorce, which is even more worse than the abuse. Now in today's time, by and large, I don't think anyone will give that type of advice. Someone has been abused, they say you draw the line, right? You can deal with personality situations.
Is that the position of Jamiat very clearly, and the people who are...
And although people do say that now, that ulama say now you must make sabr irrespective, no, we don't say that. In fact, nowadays we openly tell people, we can't stop abuse. I mean, if a husband is abusing the wife, or maybe even worse, vice versa, we don't have the capacity or the legal authority to stop it, right? And many people will say, you are not doing enough. Well, we're speaking against it, and we're telling people, if there is an issue, go to the law enforcement to prevent.
Do you think
abuse.
this is an area where Jamiat could increase its activity, develop its activity? I have no idea what that necessarily means, but I mean, if you look at in the development, for example, and the growth.
In physically stopping it, no.
Okay.
I mean, you are living in an age where you can't take the law in your own hands. Okay. So physically stopping it, we can't do that. We can refer people to the law enforcement. How strict or how effective the law enforcement is, that's a different matter. Maybe perhaps we can impress upon the people that this is not the way of Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was told about men who abuse women and beat them up, and he said, these are not the better people in our community. And then Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam chided and rebuked them and said, how is it possible for you to hit a woman, abuse a woman, and then expect to fulfill your desires with her at the end of the day? So Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam never ever, and I tell people this many a times in all of my talks, whenever I speak about marital relationship, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam never ever lifted his hand on a wife, on a woman, or on a child in his whole life. There is no recorded instance of that. So when you're talking about, following the sunnah, what sunnah are you talking about? So yes, maybe we could have impressed that more, but yes, we do nowadays very clearly tell people that if there is abuse, take whatever means necessary to prevent that abuse happening to yourself or to your daughters.
What is your assessment of Muslim society overall as Jamiat? What you've been in the organization since 1984 till now. Where is the Muslim society from then till now? Is it better? Is it worse? Is it a zero sum that there's things better and some things worse and it hasn't changed? And
I always like to be optimistic. There are certain things where we have improved a lot, and certain things. I'll give you an example with regard to Salah. Let me give you a small personal anecdote. In 1967-68, I was 7-8 years of age, right? At that time, you didn't even have an alim in Muhammad's. So the school teacher, the school principal, Mr. Chunara, used to come and teach in the madrasa between 3 and 5, right, after finishing up the school. And one day he asked us the question, and he said that, what is the difference between Asr, Zohar, and Maghrib Namaz? Now in that class, there were students who were 14, 15 years. No one could give him an answer. So one of the students at the end of the madrasa went to the Musalla. At that time, Muhammad didn't have a masjid. The masjid came in 1971. So went to the Musalla and saw Asr Namaz, they were reading softly, and in Maghrib Namaz, they were reading loudly. And he came the next day and said that Asr and Maghrib you read softly, and Maghrib you read loudly. Now that was the level of Islamic education, around 14 and 15 years. I look at my children, right? And I look at, by and large, many people. I just see the level of salat in our community is much more than what was in the 60s and 70s.
That's very promising. I didn't expect that answer.
I mean, I used to be in Karachi, right? And when we used to be in Karachi, we used to go to one very famous shopping center to buy our material for kurtas. We used to go for Maghrib Salat and used to get 4 or 5 people for Maghrib Salat. Right? And I went many years ago, almost about 30 years back after that I went. And in that same place when I went to read Maghrib Salat, where used to be 4 or 5 people, you had to wait for Jamaat. There used to be 5 Jamaats in that one shopping center.
SubhanAllah.
Now, whether it be the Tabligh Jamaat who have brought about that awareness of Salat, I don't know. But I see amongst our youngsters, you go to the Jamaat Khan and the Musalla in which university? Just go and see the amount of, go in Senton. So you do find that there's a greater amount of awareness with regard to Salat. You find a lot of Muslims being more aware, identifying with Islam than what was perhaps previously. Now, on the flip side, there is certain trends that have come in because of societal pressure or because of the trends in society which has caused certain things. Perhaps one of them has been because of competing with one another in aspects of material things. And Allah Ta'ala warns us, لا تمدن عينيك إلى ما متعنا به. Don't look at with envy at the wealth of other people. You know, Allah Ta'ala has given them wealth to test them. Not necessarily that Allah is pleased with them, but today there is no doubt whatsoever there is this keeping up with the Jonases. Now that has created a certain degree of mindset that we have made materialism almost as the goal of life and the criteria for success. And when I look at that, it worries me a lot. And I'll tell you why it worries me. There's a verse in the Quran. In fact, I was just speaking to a congregation recently. I said, when you read that verse, it is the statement of Fir'aun. It's almost echoing our mindset. وَنَادَى فِرْعَوْنُ فِي قَوْمِ قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ O my people, what is Musa calling you to? أَلَيْسَ مُلْكُ مِصْرَ Don't we have the country of Misr, the river of Nile? Am ana khayrum? Am I better than him who can't articulate himself? فَلَوْلَا أُلْقِيَ عَلَيْهِ أَسْوِرَةٌ مِّن ذَهَبٍ If he was, as a prophet, if he was successful and he was on truth, why doesn't he have wealth? Now that is, let's just take the context away and say this was not the statement of Fir'aun.
Materialism.
Just think that nearly everyone thinks like that. This man has got, look at the car he's driving, he's successful. He's better.
Does this create an issue between congregations and ulama, where friction, where congregations think they can control ulama, tell ulama what to say?
It does happen. One of the things that always happen, that if there are very people who are wealthy and who have big businesses, I always say, in your space, whatever you say is law, because you are the owner. Sometimes when you are as a trustee, you don't make the differentiation that this is not necessarily your space. This is a community space. You are part of the space. You are not the only space. Now, you got that space, whatever you say is law. Sometimes when you come into the community space as a trustee, you feel the same must happen here. And it does cause friction.
Do you train your ulama, the young ulama, on how to deal with this? Is you going out and watch out?
We do train them, but there's another trend nowadays. And it's unfortunate. I would tell the people, I told my younger ulama, that no one wants to become imams because of this friction, because of the difficulty, because of the imposition on your time. And I must tell you,
sorry to cut you, Maulana, but it seems like there are more Darul Ulooms, there are more ulama and Maulanas, and you are saying that the inclination to become an imam is less.
Yes. I'm sitting on my desk with 6 requests from communities that we don't have an imam for the past 3 months. Please get us someone.
So what's happening with all these graduates from the Darul Ulooms?
Allahu Alam, Allah knows. Maybe perhaps they find it more easier to become.
But I mean, you're sitting where you sit, you should have some oversight. I mean, don't like what?
No,
I mean, not administrative oversight, but in your case, where
during the course of when I spoke to you about the aspect of preventing abuse, one of the things that I made mention of, we don't have legislative power.
Okay.
Now, a government, before a person becomes a doctor, can force a person for internship. You are going here as part of your internship. Otherwise, you cannot practice as a doctor. Right? We don't have that authority to say you have to become an imam.
So we have shortage of imams.
Well, there is shortage of imams, especially in the smaller country towns.
What is the salary of an imam today?
Well, it's difficult to say. I mean, it depends upon community from community. Although I must say, comparatively to what it used to be, it has increased, it has improved. Maybe not to the extent that is according to the living standards of other people, but it has improved slightly.
Sure. Alhamdulillah. We are in conversation with Moulana Ebrahim Bham, Secretary General of Jamiat Ulema. When we come back, we want to talk about some of the criticisms that has been leveled against his person. We want to talk about some of the criticisms against Jamiat Ulema. I also want to know what exactly do all the presidents tell Moulana Bham when he meets with them, and what does he tell them? I'm looking forward to that. We also want to talk about integration into Muslim society, migrants coming from different parts of the Muslim world. Where is their place in South Africa, in Islam in South Africa? After this break.
In Conversation With is proudly sponsored by Africa Cash and Carry, Crown Mines.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome back in conversation with Moulana Ebrahim Bham. Moulana, what do you and the presidents talk about? And I say the presidents because from the time of President Mandela, you were there, and there are pictures of you with President Mandela, pictures with you and President Thabo Mbeki, and engaging with them, and then President Jacob Zuma, President Kharim Motlanthe before that. I also saw you recently at the ANC event in Nelspruit. You very often with the word.
Well, firstly, I must say that this particular aspect of, being close to the president is so highly over-exaggerated.
The presidents have changed, but you are still there next to them.
Sometimes, there are one or two communities, one day will phone me to say that we're having problems with our water. Can you phone the president? I said, I've never done that in my life. I've never openly just gone and picked up the phone and said, I'm speaking to the president. I've never had that type of relationship. And people must realize from our understanding. Our understanding is we get involved with the government to the point and extent of necessity.
Really?
It's not as if we are going out coverting and wanting to be in those particular forums.
I think the reverse maybe is people are asking or presume that you lobby. Do you lobby for Muslim issues? No. You don't lobby for Muslim issues?
The people will come because of the history of the Jamiat. Okay. So if there is an issue, they will come. They will say that, listen, we would like to discuss this particular matter with you. We don't go out lobbying for government approval for the Jamiat per se.
But do you lobby for Muslim issues?
Yes.
Do you lobby for Muslim issues?
We do.
What type of issues have you lobbied
for? We're just writing a letter on the Bella Bella Bill now at the moment.
Okay.
Not the Bella Bella, the Bella Bill. Right, because in our interaction, I'm just giving an example. So we send people to the public hearings. So one of the things that came up was that any type of educational institute has to be registered. And it is compulsory for people to, at a certain age, to be educated in school. So the question came, there are a lot of people who choose and opt that they want to stay away from school because they want to do hifz. Right? How does that impact upon them? The reply in the public hearings was that, no, as long as you are doing some form of education, as long as the department is aware of it, it shouldn't be a problem. So we wrote a letter, and I think it has been sent out to the department. The media department was given the go-ahead to send out that letter. Please, can you give that to us in writing? You made mention of it in your public appearances. Can we get that in writing from you? So because there's a great amount of concern, there are a lot of Hifz class students who go out and they would like to become Hafiz. How does it impact upon Muslim students who choose religious education? So these are the type of things that we will interact with the government. We'll interact with the government with regard to religious requirements, scarves, etc. It's an ongoing thing, with the educational department. Now, Mandela, when he came in, obviously, you sometimes think that perhaps Mandela had a very idealistic notion of government. And so he called the religious leaders at that time the Shell House, Lutuli House, which was, of course, in Plain Street that time, and said, I would like to set up a forum of religious leaders, and he called it the National Religious Leaders Forum, where I would like to interact with you and discuss government policy with you and take suggestions from you. So that's the time that I was made an executive member of the National Religious Leaders Forum. And yes, we used to interact with Mandela. I went a couple of times to see him. Once we went to give him an appreciation on behalf of the Muslim community for what he had done. And then, of course, Thabo came. Now, Thabo, when you look at Thabo, of course, there are different views with regard to Thabo. He was aloof, politically this and that. But out of all the presidents, the one who kept the greatest relationship with with religious leaders of Thabo Mbeki.
Really?
Not only did this National Religious Leaders Forum, not only did he give it importance, he used to twice a year meet with his entire cabinet and the religious leaders and put forward his policies, his visions, and there used to be a vigorous and robust debate.
I remember there was, I don't know if I saw your name in comments, but when the Zuma administration came in, they cancelled that.
Yes.
And that's what when you and I crossed paths.
Yeah,
and there was a lot of give and take on
and then afterwards, when Zuma came, he looked upon the NRLF as a relic of the Mbeka area, and he started off his own, which I think was an NRIC, the National Nixa.
I came up with the name.
Yeah. So that was something that happened.
National Interfaith
with
Council
Zuma,
South
there was
Africa.
1 or 2 times we met on the Palestinian issue, but I didn't meet with him a lot.
Oh, really?
Even again with the Ramaphosa, I don't have any, direct line with Ramaphosa. Or you've met with him informally.
Someone sent me a message, and I can share with you on my phone. You were at Mbombela Stadium, and a few days before that, the ANC had a prayer to the ancestors or something. And so someone sent a picture, so a few of us had said, Jamiat here, meeting with mushrikeen people.
That was not, we were not part of that particular.
No, you weren't part of that, of course.
Yeah.
So I mean, these are the kind of things that go out there and people.
Yeah. No, this one here in the moment, I'm just giving an example, two examples, right? One was a Mandela Memorial, and one was the Mbombela one. Right? So in the Mandela Memorial, they phoned and said that we have decided that you should be the Muslim voice on this particular. So I asked them, what is the process? They said, no, because of your long-standing relationship, we would like you to speak. So I said, what happens if I say no? I said, give me time. I would like to discuss it with my executive. They said, no, you don't have time. Either you say yes or no. If not, no, we're giving it to the next person. And when I heard the next person, I said, listen, let me rather do it. Right? So when you took up the responsibility, it just so happened that Mufti Taqi Usmani that time was in South Africa, so I asked him 1 or 2 questions what to say. And obviously we know our limitations. After all, I studied for 10 years as an alim. I don't want to be someone who's going to say something that is, and anyone can go and see that particular statement. Here in Mbombela, they said that given the fact that they went to the ICG, we want someone to speak on the Palestinian issue. So I didn't go there.
Do you view that when you are there, or any senior Muslim person is there, this is used as ANC campaigning, ANC rallying?
Well, any political party will take any opportunity to score political points for itself. Right? We are quite clear that we will ask for taking part in the political process. But we have never told people up till now to vote for a particular party.
The Jamiat hasn't done that. I mean, there are some scholars in South Africa who are very clear on saying this is a party. Jamiat does not do that.
We haven't done that. Obviously, we need to look in our situation this year, given the fact that the ANC has been so pro-Palestine, and there are certain other parties who are part of an alliance who have been very clear pro-Israel. So whether we should take a stance or not, we haven't discussed it.
Okay.
But thus far we haven't.
Is that on the agenda as the leader of the organization?
Obviously it's going to be an agenda. Not only as the Jamiat, any sane Muslim person thinking will have to start thinking about that. Okay. What are the repercussions if another party comes that is so pro-Israel that it's known, or at least it has certain statements or certain attitudes within that particular stuff with regard to masajid, it can have an impact upon our religious freedom. I'm not saying they will do that. Okay. But those attitudes in other parts of the world has created Islamophobia, and has created restrictions upon Muslim activities. So again, I'm not making a clear-cut decision on the matter. I'm just saying these are considerations that we have to take into account.
So do you think Jamiat, think Jamiat might decide to take a position?
That's far we haven't decided. But it is part and parcel of our discussions.
It's part of your discussions?
Yes. Okay. So as I said, these are the type of things that you have. It's not that you've got an open, that you go there and run and knock at his door for every small thing. There's a process. If you need to say something, you go through the process.
On what kind of issues does the government reach out to the Jamiat?
The government...
time. On the issue of ISIS, for an example, I mean, in the 2011, 12, 13, 14, up to there were many issues regarding security, ISIS people going, people coming, etc., whatever that was. As being a leading organization, are these the kind of issues that the government will call you on and say?
Normally, with these type of things nowadays, with the president or anyone, they will refer you back to the respective departments or the respective ministries. So with regard to ISIS, especially in the lead up to the 2010, when there was newspaper articles in the Sunday Times talking about ISIS threat upon the World Cup, that time we did go to the relevant departments. We had a meeting with the joint Muslim organizations.
They called you or you?
No, we arranged it. We called for a meeting.
You initiated?
Yes, we initiated it.
What caused you to initiate it?
Well, there was a situation that it was almost as if anything had to happen. It was almost given that the Muslims were going to cause problems.
Okay.
So we met.
So this context is very important for us to talk about.
We met with the intelligence that time. We met with the security apparatus. We have been meeting with security apparatus from time to time. Given this ISIS situation in Mozambique, we met with the relevant department of DERCA, which is overseeing SADC, and we expressed our concern. And the concern
again, at your concern, or they reaching out to understand?
We initiated this time because of the specific concern, and the concern that we raised was that it's clear here that this has got to do with a local rebellion against resources in the region. Why are you making it, or why does the media make it to be a religious issue? And that was our concern. The concern is that the people of the region are rebelling because multinationals and countries are coming in to mine the place without consideration for the local people. So it's a local rebellion. Why have you been giving it a religious connotation? So that's one of the things that we had interacted. And we have interacted with various, because that can have an impact upon South Africa. I'm just giving you a situation. South Africa goes out to a different country. It goes out as part of a SADC regional force, and South African regiment or South African army in the stuff is attacked, so-called by ISIS. How does a local population look upon Muslims here? So obviously, as a religious body, you have to start thinking about that. So we have spoken to the relevant authorities that this is not a religious issue. It's a regional issue that you have to look at. Why is it now being brought in as it's a religious issue? So yes, these are the type of things that we do keep in contact with the government.
Interfaith.
Yes.
Let's talk about interfaith. So you meet with the presidents and so forth. That's one. You go to churches. Or a church, I don't know how many churches, but I mean, you go to a church, and many scholars, people are unhappy and have comments to make. What I found interesting there, Moulana, is how venomous these comments were. They were pastor or what you call pastor or priest, reverend, and some people even went to the extent of takfir.
Well, the first thing is I've never been to a church. Right?
Okay.
The one place I went was a hall next to the church.
Okay. So
which is after 2011, right?
Okay.
2001, after the American this stuff that time. There was a call from the mayor to give a prayer on peace, which I attended. To be honest, that time when I went in, it was a hall. I never even know where I was and what was behind me when I gave the talk. Since then, I'm very clear with regard to it, and to me, I think it has been deliberately misrepresented, right? And deliberately exaggerated. And maybe perhaps people have a concern. And I also have the same concern. Right?
What is the concern?
And the concern was that there is a move with the Abrahamic Accords. Now, again, there'll be a difference of opinion whether the Abrahamic Accords is political or religious. But let us go away from there. The concern flowing from there is that there is a move, which it's not a new move. It happened in the Mughal times when Akbar tried to bring all the religions into one, amalgamation of religions. Yes. So there's a move to bring all religions together. So the fear is that when you talk about interfaith, you are bringing all religions together. So that is a fear. We as a Jamiat has issued a statement, very clear on the Abrahamic Accords. We don't believe in the oneness of religion. We believe in our religion to be supreme. Inna dina inda Allah Islam. We have quoted that verse. But we also say, it's hypocritical to say on that particular level, while you believe in the oneness of religion, that you can't cooperate with people of other faiths on common issues. There are enough verses in the Holy Quran which calls upon you that you cooperate on common issues. قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ تَعَالُوا إِلَىٰ كَلِمَةٍ سَوَاءٍ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمْ. O Ahl Kitab, come towards a common cause between you and us. لَا يَنْهَاكُمُ اللَّهُ. Allah does not prevent you with regard to people of other faiths who are not hostile to you, who don't expel you from your homes, أَن تَبَرُّهُمْ, that you be kind to them. وَتُقْسِطُوا إِلَيْهِمْ, and you be just to them. So we make a clear-cut distinction about interfaith in the sense of it being oneness and one of a civic engagement with people of other faiths. And there are many issues which are societal issues, not necessarily religious issues. Crime is not a religious issue, it's a societal issue. So if there are people in your street who are people of other faiths, if you cooperate with them on the basis of eradicating or protecting your area, would it be counted as the interfaith of oneness of religions? How is that possible?
So why were these attacks so venomous? What was?
You should ask those people. I can't answer for them.
Is the history? Is it issues of history? Is it issues of? I mean, was there history in this that there was enmity?
I don't know.
Difference of opinion.
There's a difference of opinion, and I don't mind if someone comes and tell me there's a difference of opinion. By all means, I prepare to listen to the man. Like for example, the aspect of us going on YouTube, right, or going on viewing video clips. Right now, if someone comes and tell me and say that, listen, we've got a difference of opinion with you because if you come on YouTube and you come on these particular video platforms, you are allowing or you are giving leeway for people to see other things on YouTube. My answer would be, come on, man. Today, internet is one of the biggest fitnas. Everyone uses internet. No one regards it to be a source of fitna. Right? Everyone uses internet. So if you are start going to use this particular argument that going on YouTube allows people the leeway to see other things on YouTube which are not permitted, then the same will go with regard to internet. Why are you using the internet?
Connect your phone, anything else.
Anything else. So, but I will respect a person who say that, listen, I'm afraid that by you coming on these platforms, you're allowing everything to be accommodated in those platforms. But I would argue against it. I'll say, listen, come on. And anyone, my view, anyone who's got a smartphone has got no right to speak against YouTube. I mean, then you go and get a Nokia 3310. But once you got a smartphone, you are watching. And you are involved in that space. So when you are involved in that space, there's wrong and right. We need to get people and put the right voice on that particular space. So we give people the option. So they don't only hear the things that are wrong, they hear the things that are right. And now they are ulama. One of the Shaykhul Hadith of one of the very prominent Darul Ulooms in India recently took out a clip in which he said that if people are in the space, they must listen to positive messages. So that's my view. I mean, if people have a different view, they have the right to do that view.
It's getting back, to reverend and people and alim ulama calling you kafir. Does that not speak to a bigger issue in South Africa, where every few days on WhatsApp or every few days we find ulama shooting each other verbally? There's a fiqhi disagreement which has always existed on numerous issues, but we find a lot of differences of opinion being paraded out in the public in very ugly ways.
In our centenary program.
Do you agree? Is that happening?
I made mention of one thing. I said the Jamiat Ulema gives a commitment that we will never go to the lowest common denominator. If people can call us names, we can do whatever we want. We will not reciprocate in kind. And you have never seen the Jamiat calling people names. We have our views. We'll try to put forward our views in the best possible manner. We'll put forward our views, right? But we will not call people names. I think the people who are calling names are not realizing the harm that they are doing to the very cause they say they are serving. And that harm is this, that you are reducing the impact of religion in the minds of the young people. Young people are living in a time where there is an identity crisis. They're facing an identity crisis. They have been called from different areas, pulled in different directions. There's so many different isms and ideologies and different callings for them in different. You need to give them motivation, inspiration for them to remain on deen. And what we are doing is, in this particular type of debates and arguments and calling people's name, you are not inspiring them. You are not motivating them. And may Allah Ta'ala forbid that they have to be inspired and motivated by a wrong force. What's going to happen then? Who is responsible for that? And you can't expect them to be inspired and motivated by the discourse and the language that is being used presently. Now, what we have decided is that we will make mention of our point of view in the best possible manner. And then we leave it to the people to decide. I'll give you an example. Voting or taking part in the political process is a major bone of contention amongst ulama. Some of them regard it as shirk to take part in the political process. I took out a clip recently to vote or not to vote. I've quoted statements of prominent scholars who say that you must take part in the political process as it is beneficial for Muslims. So I've quoted Mufti Mahmud, the Grand Mufti of India in his time. I've quoted many present scholars in December of this last year. All the major ulama of India called upon the Muslim community in India to register as voters. So I called upon and I said the ulama of different countries, and I gave many examples, have called upon us to take part in the political process. We put it out there. Now those who are calling people who say to take part in voting and you vote, you are becoming a mushrik, well, whoever wants to follow that, and we can't stop them. But this is our view. There was another point was that, what do we do in South Africa? So I took out a small clip, 2-3 minute clip, that there are a lot of people who are saying that given the situation in South Africa, the grime, perhaps we need to be looking at somewhere else. So I asked the people the question in that clip, is that how many percentage of Muslims can migrate? 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%, not more than that. 95% have to stay here. When you have to stay here, put your shoulder to the wheel to make the country a better place.
Is that what you are saying?
Not only saying it, it's published. And it's on my YouTube,
that is your philosophy.
That's my philosophy.
That's your for what where we are
and that
today.
is not only I gained that particular inspiration from one of our great scholars, Moulana Hussain Ahmad Madani. Right, he was against partition between India and Pakistan, and he said that a time will come when we will be known by the nation and the country we are living in. And he
understood the national identity.
He said that national identity must be preserved. And if you read he's written a book, Composite Nationalism. It's amazing. And he was the Sheikh al-Hadith of Darul Uloom Deoband.
So you believe being a Muslim and being a South African, or being South African as an identity does not contradict being a Muslim? It's
nothing. You have to be a South African and you have to be a Muslim. You have to be a Muslim true to your ideals, and you have to put your shoulder to the wheel for the betterment of the country. Throughout history, and I can prove it, wherever Muslims went, they had such a positive influence on the countries that they lived in, that many a times because of that positive influence, people change their entire deen. Look at Indonesia and Malaysia. There was no conquest that took place. People became Muslims by the mere influence of the conduct of Muslim traders. The same thing happened in Nigeria. There was you didn't hear anywhere that Muslims conquered Nigeria, conquered Indonesia and Malaysia. They changed the society by the dint and by the influence of their conduct and character. Why can't we do the same here? We're 350, 400 years here and we're still 3% of the population or 4% of the population. Something we're not doing right.
What are we not doing right?
I think we're not putting our shoulder to the wheel, and we are not being inclusive. We are not being part of the community and society. Now, many times people bring up this, that when you are part of the society, you're integrating, there's a fear that you might get lost, right? And of course, this is a genuine fear. Man tashabbaha biqawmin fahuwa minhum. He who imitates a nation become part of them. But what about the opportunities? Why are we talking about the fear, not about the opportunities?
So what more integration is there needed? We are We are in the workforce. We are in the employed workforce. We are in the academics. We're not shy from being wherever.
That exactly is my point, and I can't understand what is we're already integrated. So now, if you are going to be there in that space, make it a positive experience. Give people the courage to carry their identity and to be able to share their identity, to share what is their values. Instead of making people afraid, then obviously they're living in a vacuum. You're telling the people, go there, but don't go interact. It's impossible to do that.
I want to continue on this. I just want to close this issue of the criticism against you. Those people who made these accusations and slander, have you forgiven them? Do you forgive them?
I've always forgiven them.
You've forgiven them?
I've always. In 2 years back, I think it was 2-3 years back, the Jamiat wrote to 25 scholars, prominent scholars of the South African Muslim community, that there's been many allegations made against the Jamiat with regard to various issues. The Jamiat would like to come and meet with you on a one-to-one basis to clarify those issues. We got a response from 4 to 5, which said no, we got no problems. But the others have chosen to remain aloof. So I suppose maybe.
But those who made those slander of your view, I mean, they were deeply. I have nothing to do with it. But as someone in the community who sees any member of the community being attacked by someone in the community with this type of, it was very hurtful for me just looking at it. Did you?
Yeah, you see, at the end of the day, I suppose they say a critic is a legless man who teaches others to run. So yeah, sometimes there are people who do it because they're not in the field. So it's easy from behind a computer, in one corner, to be able to sit and talk about things when you're not on the ground.
On the ground.
You're dealing with people on one-to-one basis. And then sometimes, because you're on the ground, you face certain realities. I made a point of going to the MSA induction. When you have the MSA, the introduction of the MSA in the beginning of the WITS. I went there, I sat at the stall, I interacted with the students, I gave a small talk. There was four people from the indigenous community who became Muslim on that very same day in the MSA stall. I made one person a Muslim and he read the Shahadat with me. But I made it a point to go there for one reason, right? And that is Muslims in that particular space need to be proud of their identity. They need to be given strength and confidence for their identity. They could get lost.
The students in that space.
Temptation. So I sat with them. I sat with them for 2 hours there, and they appreciated it. But of course, there will be those who will say, you went and you encouraged ladies to go to the universities and you know the fitness that is happening there and you were part of intermingling, because obviously you can't expect, parda in that particular type of environment. So you go there and you tell the people that keep your Islam, stay away from the temptation, stay away from fitness, and remember what you have come here for. You have come for a purpose. The purpose is to become a doctor, to learn that education. Keep your purpose in mind, preserve your identity, and show the beauty of your religion in your interaction with people. Well, that's a type of message that we gave.
On Muslim identity, do you think Jamiat Ulema as an organization is representative of Muslims in terms of the ethnicities of Muslims who serve in the organization?
We need to do much more. I mean, we do realize that there is a need for us to become much more inclusive. We have tried. I mean, there's been a lot of effort made to get indigenous ulama, indigenous people in our community. We get along very well with the Somalis. We get along very well with the Pakistani community. We take part in the community. But I think there needs much more to be done.
And mashallah, you're opening all the doors of the conversation that I actually have noted here. Jamiat al-Ulama, I'll rather say it this way, our Somali brothers, our Pakistani brothers, our Bangladeshi brothers, when they come or as they are here now, it seems, or rather they have their own structures in the maraja, in fiqh, in administration and so forth. How does Jamiat engage with that? And one area I would say, not area of conflict, but one reality, for example, is Eid. I mean, the Somali brothers and then many others have, I won't say have their own calling on Eid, but they have their own fatwa and so forth. This is one area where we can see the difference in what's happening in the community.
We try to
and again, like your Jamiat office is here and 2 streets behind. That's where they have a big part of the Somali community. What's happening with these kinds of relationships?
We try. I mean, we are alert to that. We also alert to the fact that, I'll give you an example from history. When the Abbasid Khalifa told Imam Malik Rahmatullah alayhi that I want to make you a mu'atta, the official fiqh of the entire Khilafat. And Imam Malik said, no, don't do that. People have received deen from different sources. Let them follow deen from the sources that they have received. We are also aware of the fact that there are people, we might be following the Hanafi fiqh, there are people who follow the Maliki fiqh, or the Hanbali fiqh, or other fiqh, Shafi fiqh. There's Masjid Imam Shafi that is in 8th Avenue in the south. So you can't force them or impose upon them to follow one fiqh. We are sensitive with regard to that. The one point that we do try to say that irrespective of the fiqh you're following, there are certain type of things, let us try and reach some sort of unanimity. Now, the Eid issue is a very difficult issue. I mean, there is no clear-cut answer on it. I'm in the forefront of it, and I know the difficulties that is there.
Every year you answer the same questions.
I answer the same questions.
You're very patient, Moulana.
And I tell people that, all right, you're telling us to make Eid with Lusaka or Maputo, right, or with Harare. And yet, the people in this particular area in South Africa, the theological groups have not been able to reach unanimity with regard to accepting neighboring countries. Now, what is the use of having Eid with Harare and Lusaka when the masjid down your road is having a different Eid? So at least let us start off by having, as far as possible, unanimity within Islamic organizations in South Africa. Now, we do understand that the Somalis, for example, have a natural inclination that Eid Ba'd al-Wuquf, that we're going to make Eid after Arafat. And they do. We have called them into our offices on the day of the sighting, on the night of the sighting. Come and see the evidence and the process that we go through. So they do come. Some of them do follow us. Some of them don't follow us. They say, no, listen, we want to go a particular route.
What?
But despite that, we have every year on the 26th of December, they have a big gathering in the Masjid Imam Shafi. For the past 6 years, I've been the opening speaker in that particular masjid. So we do keep every year.
How does this affect the dynamic of Islam in South Africa? This new wave of expression of Islam, of migrants, Somalis, Bangladeshis, etc. What does? Again, it also seems like there's. I won't use the word segregation, but also seems like that community exists on itself, and we pass each other on the corridor. We pass each other down Church Street. We pass each other in phones.
No, I wouldn't put
you know what I'm saying?
I mean, see, even at the time of the Sahaba, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used to pay people according to their tribes.
Right.
So you sign in Mina, the people used to stay according to their tribes. Right? Even in the battlefields, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used to pay people according to the Muhajirin. You take this left regiment, Ansar, you take this Bani, this particular tribe, you take that particular. So as long as it doesn't cause enmity and hostility, it's a natural thing for you to be close to your clan, right? As long as it is for the sake of identity and not for the sake of superiority. إِنَّا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ مِنْ ذَكْرٍ وَأُنْثَىٰ وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. There is going to be a natural inclination of people inclining towards their own. But it must not lead to disunity. It must not lead to disharmony in the community.
There's also reputational issues to Islam that illegal immigrants bring to South Africa, because and whenever you go onto social media, and then every now and then there's an altercation, there's an issue, there's a problem, and very often it's a Muslim Bengali, Muslim Pakistani, Muslim Somali, and then of course then I'm sure you get the reports of what is the social media.
I mean, even there's a particular aspect of selling expired food. We bring it to their attention. I spoke to the Bengali community. I said, please see to it that this doesn't happen. Even if it has to be one person who does it, and it creates a situation of someone. So
you address these issues with?
Yeah, we do try to the best.
The issues of being legal in the country and so forth. Do you address this with the leadership?
I mean, see, one thing.
Again, you can't impose But I mean, the issue is, and I'm being very selfish in the next question, and that is, people who are third, fourth, fifth generations South African Muslims, now new Muslims are coming and they're doing whatever it is they're doing, and then suddenly it's again these Muslims. I mean, even I on Twitter something, go back to wherever, go back here. Like, guys, I've been here for 250, 300 years or so. Where must I go back to? And suddenly now there is a light, or Muslims across the board are viewed in this.
You see,
and so some people must say, well, no, it's not us who are originally from Fordsburg, who are originally from Lens, or originally from Grassy Park and Lensdowne. It's actually these guys who came now the other day who are doing this.
It is a reputational risk. We all know that. We do try to reach out to them, but you must bear in mind, it's almost impossible to expect the Jamiat to be able to police such things.
No, I mean, I don't expect to police
it's not, when Home Affairs with all its infrastructure have not been able to curb illegal migration. I mean, we're in no position to be able to do so.
I don't expect you to police. No, that's not the case. I think just is. What is your take on this? And do you race us with these?
We do from time to time. And I'll give you another example, right? I was speaking, I said we'll bring it up later on in the conversation. I told you that in the beginning when I came in 83, 84, we had Muslim urban professionals who were part and parcel of the congregation. Now 80% of my congregation, maybe not so much on a Jummah, but on a normal namaz, Maghrib, Isha, they're all India or Pakistani. And in Mayfair there would be Somalis. I have an excellent relationship with my congregation. And I sit and speak to them in their local language because I know Gujarati, for example. And I find it actually quite interesting in the sense that how I used to get along with those people in the early 90s and late 80s, and how I'm getting along with this particular group, which are completely different dynamic and have completely different demographics. But alhamdulillah, I've been able to adjust to both sets of circumstances.
Alhamdulillah. We're running out of time. UQSA. Tell us a little bit about UQSA. You're involved in UQSA. What exactly?
Well,
we're only about UQSA when it's the moon sighting, but I'm sure there's other things that happen.
No, UQSA does a lot of things, especially recently, especially when Salam Abdul Khaliq Ali has assumed the presidentship of UQSA. UQSA came about after 1994, when the boundaries of the Transvaal, Cape Province, Western Cape Province at the time, and Transvaal and Natal were starting to get blurred. So there was a need for us to have a United Ulema Council, and may Allah Ta'ala reward Sheikh Nazim, Moulana Abbas Khan, and Moulana Yunus Patel, and Moulana Abbas Jinnah. Out of the four, only Moulana Abbas Jinnah is alive, who were the people who came up with the idea of the United Ulema Council of South Africa, that let Muslims speak on one voice on national issues.
Is it working?
Alhamdulillah, it meets every 2.5 months, every quarterly it meets.
What are the issues that?
Then the issues that it has a subcommittee on LGBTQ, it has a subcommittee on education. It deals and has given so many different types of statements recently on LGBTQ, on the Palestinian issue, on different situations. The last one, it spoke and it wrote a letter to the OIC on the starvation of Gaza. And it gets along all around. And every time, whenever it has a meeting, it always has an outreach. So when we had our meeting in Lenasia this time, we had an outreach to political parties. We had a meeting with ANC, right? We had a meeting with the intelligence community. The deputy director came. So whenever we have a meeting, the next meeting will be in Cape Town. We'll have a meeting, an outreach with regard to some activity or some organization that is in that region. We had a meeting of all welfare organizations when we were in Durban last. So yes, we try to be relevant.
LGBTQ. Do you think Islamic organizations are doing enough? I mean, I say this in the context of fatwa or statements that come from organizations around the Muslim world, where it seems that some Muslim organizations or scholars or du'at are taking an interesting position and not quoting anyone specific, but the narrative goes, Islam is concerned about what you do, the actions. So if you're not doing the action, how you feel, that's your own issue. As long as you don't do the action, then really we don't have, and as long as we don't catch you doing the action, we don't have to deal with you. How you feel, what your orientation is, that we can't judge you on that. Is that is that part of appeasement, trying to say, we
the
are
only-
relevant, we're not against it, we don't want to go against the grain of what's happening in society? Because, our big political parties, many Muslim, I find interesting thing that for example, the ANC, and actually I think almost all political parties, except a few, push and accept the global LGBTQ agenda. And is this Muslim organizations or individuals on a cop-out, like, let's appease with this type of statement?
I think the Islamic rule is very clear, and the Islamic position is very clear.
Okay.
That particular type of fulfillment of your desire in that particular way is out of the bounds of our religion, is not permitted. Now, the only thing that what you are speaking about is that 150 ulama from America have come out with a joint statement. In that particular joint statement, I don't know whether you could call it appeasement. Maybe according to that political situation there, they have come out with something. I'm not going to comment about them because Sahibul Bayti Adra bima fi. They are the people who know about the situation, and maybe they have come up. I haven't seen anywhere else of a joint statement that have come up from different Islamic organizations. From our side, we are very clear with regard to it. If someone is involved, we will say that, listen, the act or what you are doing is wrong, but we are going to deal with you in a sympathetic manner. We'll sit and engage with you.
Okay.
We'll sit and talk to you about it. But as far as accepting something which Islam hasn't accepted, we don't have the right to do so.
Do we, as Jamiat Ulema, do you know how many Muslims are in South Africa?
No, we've tried a lot to try and ascertain that.
I've interviewed a few South African Muslim leaders of your seniority, and it seems to be something that no one can answer.
No one can answer. Although I must say, we must look at our numbers much more than what we normally say. We normally say 1, 2, 3. I would say much more than that. I was speaking to a representative of the Pakistani community recently. He was saying that their estimate of their community is 300,000 Pakistanis. And then if you look at the Bengalis, who are much more than them, right? So you must look at least 1 million, if not more, of the migrant community, 1 million or 2 million complete. If you're talking of 350,000 from the Pakistani community, which is perhaps the least amongst the migrants, then you can imagine what we are talking about.
So what number? If you have to choose a number when it comes to dealing with your constituents. What number do you?
I would put it between 3 and 4 million.
3 and 4 million.
Yeah.
3 and 4 million. Do you think it's a project that South African Muslim organizations
We did try. It's very difficult. The type of logistics you need is not something that an ordinary organization can do. You need a government and the apparatus of a government to be able to do something like that.
Moulana Ebrahim, in a few seconds, what is your final words to South African Muslims on Channel Islam International?
The stuff is we sometimes we only look at we come into a culture and a mindset of being defensive, right? So whenever we speak about things, we always look at the fear in doing something. I think there's high time that we start looking at the opportunities. When we look at our beloved Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was an active role player in the community. To this extent, when there was a noise in Medina Munawwara and people were apprehensive about that noise, when they came out of their house, they saw the Prophet of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on horseback, saying, I went to investigate the source of noise, there is nothing to be afraid about. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, you are not a believer if you eat your fill and your neighbor is hungry. There's a clear-cut vision and mission statement in that hadith which tells you what we are supposed to do. Are we doing that or not? Is something that I leave it to the listeners or to the viewers.
Moulana Ebrahim Sahib, Jazakallah khair al-jaza for joining us. Barakallah feek. And it is my honor to have had you here today. Barakallah feek. Allah yahfaz. Shukran to you. Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair for joining us in conversation with Moulana Ebrahim Bham. Hafidhahullah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
In Conversation With is proudly sponsored by Africa Cash and Carry, Crown Mines, and shot on location at Cortuba Convention Center.